Five, four, three, two, one. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Moon Tea Podcast. I'm John. This is Hugh, and today we're going to be exploring Bitcoin, and more specifically, just playing around with the idea of what do we think happens to Bitcoin after the year 2140. Disclaimer: neither of us really know what we're talking about, but maybe if you do know more, or maybe if we're wrong about something, you can email at us or tweet at us or come on to our show. So yeah, well, also we're the ones with the microphone, so so um yeah, and so the I think the premise of this episode was the end of last episode, episode number 4. We started getting into a really cool discussion about 2140 and kind of saved it for today. And Hugh, do you want to provide some more background into that?
Yeah, sure. So 2140. What is going to happen, John Kim? What is going to happen? The background on the story from the last episode, for those who weren't tuning in, was we were beginning to dive into a bit more of just blockchain and Bitcoin, and how does Bitcoin, with a finite amount of 21 million tokens ever to be created, how does it last the expanse of time past 2140 when the final token is arguably to be minted? And how does the monetary system work then? How much would one Bitcoin or a Satoshi even cost, and whether or not that's feasible? And we were discussing a few things about inflation and centralized banking, and whether or not Bitcoin should even become the world's reserve currency, and if so, why?
That's a lot to unpack there. Like, first of all, if Bitcoin was alive in 2140, that would be pretty wild by itself.
Yeah, I totally agree.
because because even like, how often do we change our world reserve currency? Isn't it like every, I don't know, it's like not, I think it's like every 50 years or something. I'd have to look this up before I say anything, but like, what are the chances that the US dollar is even the world's reserve currency in 2140?
Oh, very minimal. I think, isn't it the Great British Pound is the only currency that's ever survived for so many hundreds of years, and everything else has been deflated down to nothing, or inflated to nothing?
Let's look it up before we just kind of talk out of our asses. Cool. So the US dollar, oh, so it's a percentage. So they have an index. So the US dollar right now is at like 60% of global currency reserves. All right, let's not get into it that much. I think the point of the episode today was that uh, in the year 2140, the last piece of Bitcoin will be mined. Uh, let's pretend that we don't have fractions of Satoshis, which may complicate things. And so if we do reach that year, the question becomes: is the Bitcoin network still going to be around? Is it going to be stable and secure? How are miners going to be rewarded? And I have my opinions, and I'm sure Hugh has his opinions and his questions and his skepticisms. Um, so yeah, what's going on in your mind, Hugh?
Well, right back at you. Where should we start, John? Where do you want to unpack? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I have my theory about what is going to happen, and I'd love for anyone to poke holes into it. So
Let's
I
hear it.
think I think what's going to happen is mining fees are going to get really expensive for on-chain transactions. I think we're still. Oh, last week I said that a Bitcoin block size was 10 megabytes. I was wrong. It's actually 1 megabyte. So I think we'll still have 1 megabyte block sizes, which is really small, and uh, and I think the transaction cost of an on-chain transaction will be a lot more expensive in 120 years than it is today. The way I imagine it happening is that we'll have kind of like this like a pyramid of Lightning Network nodes, and so like for every like blockchain block, you have one Lightning network node, or like one. It's like one block is one node, and then you have Lightning Network nodes under that. But then you have other Lightning Network nodes that get connected to those nodes. So it becomes this tree of nodes. Anyways, hopefully that visual makes sense. But what I was thinking was that the lower you are, the lower you are in terms of levels down this tree, the less security you have. But the benefit is that the cheaper the transaction. And the higher you go up, the more security you get, and yeah. And so I suspect that if we do go about this model, then the on-chain transactions will mostly be Lightning Network nodes directly under it that are, I guess, like detaching or like settling a transaction. So yeah, that's my theory about how it could happen, and it kind of answers the question or addresses the question of, number one, how are we going to pay miners for keeping the blockchain secure? Number two, how are we still going to have transactions, and how are we going to, like, quote unquote, compete with the Visa network, which I don't think we necessarily have to do, but that's another discussion. And yeah, there are other layer 2 solutions that I think could make this more complex. Maybe there's something really like there's this thing called atomic swaps, which is kind of like freeways. So like if I send Bitcoin to someone else, like the idea behind it is maybe the Lightning or maybe Litecoin's network is a lot like cheaper and like less congested, so it'll like quickly convert to Lightning, or quickly convert to Litecoin, send the transaction, and then quickly convert back to Bitcoin, and like neither party will know what exactly happened. Just like if you and I go to a website, like we're not thinking about like HTTPS and like TCP and all these things that like kind of magically happen in the background. So that's my monologue. That's a few things, and that's my theory about how all of this stuff could work out in 120 years when we're both dead.
I love it. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. I'm so curious, John. For people who are listening, I have a feeling that at least one person out there was probably like, wait, I made it this far. That was amazing, John. However, what do some of these terms mean? Could you give us a quick refresher on just what the Lightning Network is versus, or in respect to the Bitcoin? The Bitcoin?
The Lightning Network is a protocol for sending and receiving transactions. It's off chain or layer 2, which means that it's not directly on the blockchain, and it's I think it was proposed like around 2015. Probably wrong about that, but it is in use today, but it's not widely adopted yet.
Love it. So in respect to just how Bitcoin works, there are blocks that you say are up to 1 MB or are 1 MB. And those are the basically like the payloads or the things that hold all of the transactions in that given 10-minute slot for whatever gets put into that block. And that's how the transactions are then minted into the ledger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if there's a finite amount of space in one block, which is 1 MB of transactions worth of data, basically, what I'm hearing is in the year 2140 or even now, when there are things that don't make it into that block because there's just too much competition for it and the prices would then go up for getting your transactions into that, there are other solutions like Lightning, which are layer 2 and off chain, which are then able to kind of distribute that workload and distribute the amount of transactions that are being done at a cheaper scale, but then roll them back up into the main blockchain of Bitcoin and have those transactions be both verified and stored on the ledger.
Yeah.
Nice.
You have any theories about what like, and I think the idea is that the big picture of things, by the year 2140, rewards from Bitcoin mining will go down, as hopefully rewards from the Bitcoin network will go down proportionally to actual like mining fees.
So yeah, what happens then though at 2140 when the last block has ever been mined, when miners don't have any incentive to get rewarded, how do they get rewards in the end? Is it off of transaction fees?
Yeah.
Okay. And what I was hearing you say is it sounds like it's really cool. So it seems like there's that pyramid scheme, not a taboo word, but they're basically like a pyramid of different security levels you were mentioning. And at the topmost security, where it's hardest to get into the block, that's the main chain, right? And then you distribute it down into different layers of securities and price points, it sounds like, for verification of your transaction or whatnot.
Yeah, so that's my theory. I think that's if the Lightning network is widely adopted and widely used, and if my understanding of it is correct. Um, Again, I'm just some guy, and there are people who know more than I do, and I, and for anyone listening, like both Hugh and I want to learn more about this. So like, please reach out to us and like,
God, if you know
like
way more, yeah, definitely DM us. Get on here. Please teach us. If you know, I hope by episode 50, we can readdress this conversation and we'll just be that much more skilled. But yeah, that makes sense. So I don't understand how security things work with regards to blockchain transactions, especially Bitcoin transactions work. And then I don't understand how when you're at pyramid level 1 compared to pyramid level 5 Lightning and Lightning level 50, how the security really will be different when they all roll up into the same thing. And also, yeah, I don't understand. Would there be a service that I would look at and be like, oh, I want a level 34 security practice payment that I'll pay for verifying my transaction to John when I send him this tea set, or pay for this tea set he gave me or something? I don't know.
I have no idea. I suspect that uh, if it is widely adopted, like most people won't know that it's being done in that way.
Weird. Really? That's
Yeah,
weird.
I suspect that there will be a variety of payment services that kind of attach themselves to the Bitcoin network and just transact like through, or like attach a node.
See, that kind of makes sense to me. So like when a user or a person buys something with a credit card, a piece of plastic, in the future, what I have come to believe and think is going to happen is whether it be Bitcoin or some other blockchain technology or token, we're going to be using that technology under the hood, but we're still going to be using a plastic piece of thing, swiping it possibly, or I guess we may be into biometrics by then. But with regards to that, is I can see how Bitcoin could possibly, because like Visa's starting to use it now, right? Like they're actually starting to transact with it, or they're trying to build the layer on it. Man, I need to read more. There's something.
I just saw the headline. I'm not gonna pretend
Yeah,
like I
know.
have a hot take on
Uh,
what Visa is doing.
I need to read more on that because it would be interesting, right? Like if MasterCard's, Visa, or just banking networks in general, like some banks have Zelle. What if, and or I know that, Ripple was trying to be a big partnership with banks and build that banking solution and such, but they didn't do too well and such. So I don't, oh man, we got to learn more.
So I think, and I didn't make up this analogy. I heard it from Andreas Antonopoulos, but so if you think of telephones, like the earliest telephones were connected to like literal wires and like literal like switch boxes, and there was someone somewhere that would pick up the phone and be like, where do you want me to route your call? And then a few decades later, we had the internet. Phone companies got scared, but like if you look at it now, like we phones use some level of the internet to provide like fast and like clear communication. And so the thing that they were scared of became a tool to make that service better. And I suspect that in the same way, Bitcoin will be the monetary network that Visa and MasterCard and other credit card services will use to issue settlement, like between banking institutions. And yeah, I suspect that that could happen. Like I think the way I look at Bitcoin long term is that, and this is copied from Michael Saylor, but that it becomes the monetary network, and you choose to plug in to the monetary network or not. And yeah, and then I suspect that the credit card service is like what they're really good at, which is quick and easy buying stuff, going to the grocery store, like buying, like making that seamless transaction happen. Like if it could just be attached to the monetary network and like be a tool to like make that cheaper for them to use, make it more secure, all these things. Do I know exactly how that's going to work? No, I don't, but I'm just we're just playing with ideas here.
So there's like thousands of altcoins and coins and blockchain tokens and such that are out there now. And there's, top 10 market cap coins they have quite a lot of money in them now. In 2140, will it just be Bitcoin, or how do other coins come into play, or what would it look like possibly, since again we're just making it up?
Yeah. And again, I have no idea. But I
guess how do they play together? How did they, what's the point? Like, why don't we just have Bitcoin? Why do we have all these other things?
Yeah. And to be fair, I don't have a good answer to that question, which is why I mostly have just Bitcoin. Or like I don't have most of the other altcoins, but I think so. Like Litecoin, for example, I think has a pretty interesting value proposition, which is that development and testing on the Litecoin network can be done a lot quicker than it is on the Bitcoin network. And so it becomes like a test net for Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin already has a testing ecosystem, but it's, from my understanding, it's kind of with like fake money. And so if Litecoin does something and it works and it's good, then that becomes a big incentive for Bitcoin devs to adopt the same thing. And that's kind of what happened with segregated witness in 2016 or 2017. And I think Ethereum will still be around. Like, I think with Ethereum, you understand more so than I do, but like, I can see how decentralized applications get really good and they do really cool things, and we'll be like, okay, people are willing to pay for gas fees. All right, well, let's use it. What do you think?
I actually really want to learn more about Litecoin. That's one that I've invested in just a bit, and I don't fully understand the technology under the hood. So that is one that I do want to look up next. From what I understand, there are a few that I am quite interested right now. Right, you've got Bitcoin, tried and true, deflationary peg, and the first mover of all of it, and it's still making waves. But then, of course, you've got Ethereum, which I think are really interesting for the decentralized applications and the dApps. And then you've also got NFTs being built on it, but they also, but they also have really high gas fees recently since they switched on over. Did the gas fees recently happen since that switch in December to V2.0 of the Ethereum fork? I don't remember, but
I think the gas fees are high just because the price of Ethereum is high, and the price of Ethereum is high because people are.
I think it's more. I think
Right,
it's kind of.
Are you talking about in December they released a proof of stake?
Yeah, they like switched
Ethereum.
over. Yeah, they. Man, give us a few episodes and I'll be more intelligent on this for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's adopted yet. I
There's
suspect that
different.
it takes some time.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, so there's ways in which requests for improvements are introduced, and then they're adopted by the community. There are three types of people. Man, let's go back to this. In 3 episodes, I'm coming back to this because I don't want to even talk about it. But anyways, at Ethereum's really cool, and then I find Chainlink to be really interesting. Link, and then I also think that Filecoin with IPFS is super interesting, and I also think that what was it? ADA, Cardano, Stellar are really interesting. And none of this is financial advice, of course, but these are just things I find interesting to research. But yeah, Filecoin is really interesting, I think, because it's basically, you know how Amazon Web Services have massive server farms and they own all of your data, or Google has it too, and their storage or Azure. What I really enjoy about this whole concept of decentralization and blockchains in general is that people are trying to figure out a way to create a decentralized database slash just a way for people to decentralize data storage so that it's not just held by one institution and owned by them. And then you have it cryptographically hashed and controlled and safe, and you pay for that to random people who can then be quote unquote miners, but I guess are server farmers. And that would be really cool. So just a fun little tidbit. It's gone up like 25% in the past 2 days and like 50% in the past like month. So it's a pretty interesting coin.
Nice.
But
did you quit the day job yet?
I didn't put enough into that. I wish I did. I was a bit scared. I'm still, yeah. Don't invest in technology until you understand it. So only invest what you think you can afford or okay with losing and are okay with just not even thinking about whether it goes up or down. I guess if you're going for long term.
I disagree with that sentiment, by
What?
the way.
Really? Tell me
Yeah,
more. Why?
the idea of investing what you can afford to lose, I think, is like such a newbie mindset.
All right.
um, I won't go too much into it, but I think I think people should only invest in uh what they're willing to buy more of if that thing goes down.
The difference between investing and what you're willing to lose and investing in something, I think they go both hand in hand.
Yeah, but I'm like Warren Buffett isn't he's not like, oh, I'm willing to lose this. I'm gonna buy this insurance company. Like he's done his research and he okay, I don't want to bring Warren Buffett into this. He invested in ExxonMobil, and I think he made a really bad decision in doing that. So I won't bring him into this, but um, I think in a general sense, like it should be more like you should be willing to put in money that you won't need for the next 10 years. Like I'd rather hear that than like, oh, be willing to lose.
Yeah, I guess it's funny when I think about it. I guess when I invest in just securities in the stock market, I don't really think about what I'm willing to lose because I don't really think most any of those stocks will go to zero. But
Mm-hmm.
that sentiment and that statement has come about most often when I talk about investing in crypto slash Bitcoin mainly and
Mm-hmm.
just blockchains in general. So I see what your point is on it does kind of propagate a fear for no real major reason when the technology is starting to be proven and really there's so much investment and foundational support by big institutions now that there's a very low chance that Bitcoin would go to zero if anytime soon. Just like any company can go bankrupt and go to zero at any time in the future.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin is less likely to go to zero than Amazon is than the chance of Amazon going to zero. Like if I think about if I was going to be in a time like a be frozen for 100 years, would I rather buy Amazon or Bitcoin? I think I would
I'd rather
most
buy
definitely
Bitcoin.
buy yeah, I'd most
Yeah,
definitely buy Bitcoin.
yeah, without a doubt.
But
Without a doubt. Yeah.
yeah, imagine coming out and being like, oh, world's reserve currency. It's the everyone's monetary network. I can go to Mexico and still buy the same thing. Like I don't have to worry uh, about currency conversions. But
You
yeah.
know, I thought I heard this interesting thing. I was in line to get my second vaccine yesterday for about 2 hours, and I listened to a good amount of Antonopoulos, and it was fantastic. Something I actually heard that when you're talking just now, it made me remember and think about that. I was like, whoa, I've never thought about it in that light. With regards to Bitcoin, 21 million world reserve currency, whether that'll happen, and just how to think about investing in Bitcoin and whether or not you should do it and whether or not you should think it should go to zero. Because now I realize the flaw in my ways. Thank you, John. That's great. So what I actually thought was very interesting was there's kind of this difficulty for people now to buy into Bitcoin because it's so high, quote unquote, in their perspective for one Bitcoin. And there's a psychological phenomenon that it's not really, is it pegging? It's like the unit phenomenon or something where you want a unit of something, and if you can't have a unit of it, then you feel like you're lesser than, or if you don't own one Bitcoin,
Mm.
a lot of people that I was listening to in that podcast, they're like, yeah, I would feel just bad or something. And I'm just like, that's what people say. And it's like, you know, I liked what they were discussing about that of like, that's really not the most healthy way to think about it. Because if you really think about it, there's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. And there are 20. So just at a high level, there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be produced. If people got on the train really early, you were able to get 10,000 Bitcoin for a few bucks, right? And then that's the first tier. And then the second tier is then it was $1. So then there was 21 million coins that could have been bought for $1 if they were sold on the market. And then basically what happens is if you as a group of 21 million each had one, that means that if someone had one Bitcoin, there would be 21 million people with one Bitcoin. And that's cool. Like no one will ever be able to have more than that or less than that. It would just be that. But then there's another tier. So those are the people like that are there. There's the people with 100 Bitcoin or 1,000 Bitcoin or the Genesis block of what is it, 100 of a million Bitcoin or something. But once you go down, then there's the next tier. And it's like, what tier do you want to be in of Bitcoin? Then it'll go down to the 0.1 tier of Bitcoin, which would have, or the 0.5 tier of Bitcoin, which would have 42 million people. And then go down even more to the 0.1. And 0.1, was it 0.01? You would own 1 million Satoshis. So I thought that was really cool, is having people think about it as not owning 0.01 Bitcoin, but owning 100, but being a person who owns 1 million Satoshis. And that's really cool because, again, it's an investment vehicle. And basically, the way I like to think about it, at least, is, you know, the internet back in 1990, 2000s, when it was still being developed and we had the dot-com boom, everybody was able to buy URLs and domain spaces like cats.com or whatever. And right now, those types of .com domains are selling for $50,000 to $100,000 plus $500,000, depending if they're like 4 or 5 letters .com. So that's the only thing that people could really invest in, and a few other things. But you could never really buy a piece of the internet. But I once heard in a discussion was someone asked somebody when they asked that type of question was, if you could have had the opportunity to buy a bit of Manhattan, would you? And people would be like, yeah, of course I would buy a bit of Manhattan because you know how much those sky rises are and apartment complexes are. And you've got the people who live in a mansion there. You've got the people who live in a house. You've got the people who live in a 4-bedroom apartment and a person who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment that's 500 square feet. How much do all those cost? And they scale down, not infinitely, but they scale down pretty small. Now, with regards to that, that's kind of what Bitcoin is, and or just blockchains in general, even Ethereum and such. You can basically buy a piece of the internet, or you can basically buy a piece of Manhattan, and you're literally actually buying a piece of it. So you're buying the foundational architecture that the future possibly is going to be built on. And I think that's a really cool hedge to even think about. And whether or not you should invest in it because you're okay with just having that money not be touchable for 10 years, that's fine. I think that's a cool way to think about it. But I do think that to any of my friends that are listening or have made it this far, I definitely think it is an interesting idea. And again, this isn't financial. I don't know what the line is for financial advice, but this is what I think is interesting, is getting to own 1 million Satoshis. I think that's a really cool goal. And if you can figure out what 1 million Satoshis is, then you would be a 1 millionaire in Satoshis. Ooh. Right? Like that is pretty cool. And who knows how long it'll turn into a Manhattan apartment that is worth a bit, you know? And end statement.
Yeah, I just want to say that when you were talking about it's like owning a bit of Manhattan or betting on the internet, no one knows for sure if this will be the next internet. I suspect that it is. And I also think it's more risky not to have Bitcoin than to have Bitcoin. I think people should look into putting in at least 1%, reading about it, learning about it, and potentially put in more. That being said, yeah, I guess we won't, like nothing is for sure. And so again, not financial advice, but definitely worth looking into. A lot of cool things going on.
Can I send 1 Satoshi? If someone opens a wallet and DMs us, I will send them a Satoshi.
you'll spend way more than 1 Satoshi on transaction fees.
That's going to be a learning lesson. I've never sent anything to anyone on a blockchain. So the first person that ever DMs me that isn't John and they say, I want a Satoshi, I'll send it to you and pay whatever that transaction fee is.
Hey, if you make a Litecoin wallet, I'll send you some. I think a transaction is like 1 cent.
See, I don't know how transactions work or wallets work because I just got a Trezor, right? And I haven't moved it away from my Coinbase cold storage wallet yet. And when I do that, I don't understand how you provision different hardware wallets. If you need to, or if you just have a hardware wallet address and it can store, as they're saying, many different types of coins, not just Bitcoin, but any other coin. But it seems like, from what I've understood, different hardware wallets have different coins that they can accept. There's like a limit to them. So some wallets can accept more or less, like the MK3 wallet can only accept Bitcoin, and it's built for that as super, super secure. But then there's other ones that can accept like 1,000 different coins. Does that mean whenever a coin, if you store, Litecoin, Bitcoin, and Ethereum on a hardware wallet device, like a Trezor or what was yours again? I just forgot.
Ledger.
A Ledger. If you store it, are there three hardware wallet? Are there three wallets, or is it one wallet and then you send out from an address? Like, when does an address on each blockchain, each respective blockchain, get created? And then, I don't know what I'm asking. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that our hardware wallets are just little chips that hold on to private keys. So it just like holds on to a.
Looks like this.
Yeah, it's just like a little
small
USB
thing.
drive thing with the little screen.
And then you like plug it in.
Yeah,
a little thing. And I haven't done it yet. I don't know how to do it.
It's just built to never expose the private key. That's it.
Yeah, there's like a special chip in it that's decentralized, that disconnected from like the hardware. Decentralized, God. That has security features, and there are people that go really deep into never even connecting it to a computer or a device with internet and keeping it safe. But I don't know. To our extent, this seems fine.
Yeah, I think it's just a software thing. Like saving Litecoin is just saving the private key for that Litecoin address, and then you send it to the.
If I have a Trezor and I want to store Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin on it, does this? I'm just gonna have to do it, I guess. But would this give me a wallet address that is agnostic to the blockchain token it would receive, or does it give me per token an address that's unique that's on that chain?
It has the private key of that token. So like for Bitcoin, it has the private key. It knows to never expose it. And
the seed key, you're talking about like the pass key, the seed?
No, I'm talking about the private key. So like the long string that is a private key of a Bitcoin wallet.
Oh, interesting.
So it just
there's a private and public address.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that recently, actually. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea behind it is the public address is the publicly facing wallet that anyone can send can send pieces of Bitcoin or like send Bitcoin to, and anyone can see it. You can like look it up. It's like part of the blockchain. And then you only own, it's your wallet if you have the private key. Like that's the only thing. And the private key is linked to the public key. So like from the algorithm SHA-256. I don't know about algorithms. I've been meaning to look into it, but if you get the private key, it'll spit out the public key, so like it can be verified. Or if you have the private key, yeah, it'll verify that it's that public key. But just from having the public key, you won't be able to find the. Just from having the public key, you will not be able to find the private key. So the private
Can I
key
still
is
see the funds in a wallet? Like, can you see all the transactions that went to that certain wallet, or does the public key change every time? Because I was also wondering about security issues there. Like, what if people send you something and then they know what your public key is forevermore, and they can always just see whatever's coming in and out of it?
yeah, people can see what's coming in and out of it. And I think some wallets will have a thing where they make a new wallet every time. But then but yeah, I mean that's the idea behind the blockchain. It's like it's there for everyone to see.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that are being done to try to have some amount of privacy, but that's I guess for people who are really looking into privacy, you have like Monero and the other one.
Interesting.
But
Monero.
But yeah, the and then the seed in your hardware wallet to get access to the device is just the password that protects the private keys.
That makes sense. Yeah. And sometimes they use a PIN as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
that was really cool learning about that. Oh, go for it. What's up?
Yeah. And then the reason why you connect it is so that I don't know what it does exactly, but then it uses the private key to send a transaction. And
that makes sense. That makes sense. It's like the signature on the hardware wallet. Once you unlock your hardware wallet with a PIN and type in your seed phrase, it creates and whatever, it unlocks that correct private key and then matches it in that blockchain header, sends it, and it's a verified transaction or authorized transaction. Got it. That's really cool.
It'd be really cool. If Apple released a software update where every iPhone,
I don't see why they don't do
every iPhone just became a hardware wallet, became integrated with Apple Pay, and I feel like they have to be working on it.
Yeah, I think I replied to a Paul Graham tweet no one replied to, and he's like, "What's the next big thing?" And I was like, I don't understand why Apple Wallet doesn't have a crypto blockchain hardware wallet supported. Like a software wallet, it would be a soft wallet, but man, cool. Yeah, I want to send it. I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna figure it out. I've had this on my desk for a few weeks now, and I'm like, gosh, I need to take, you know what they say, not your keys, not your money, not your coins, not your tokens. I don't know what it is. Not your keys, not your coins.
Catchy.
Yeah. Have you heard it before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Great.
What else? Let's see. Oh man.
Tea break. I was in a meeting today, and I was talking to a person who does he does sales for my company to other brokers, I think. And then there was another person who they talk to a lot of customers. And just for some context, I work at a market making firm called Virtue Financial, but we're in the crypto business. Like we do market making for Canadian Bitcoin ETFs.
No way.
And I was asking them, is the opportunity really big because Bitcoin is very volatile, and a lot of financial services companies are like not have not like made or are not providing like liquidity yet, and so like because we're one of the early ones, like, is that a big opportunity? And he basically said you'd be surprised how many financial services companies are like in this space. So
I believe it. Yeah, totally believe it.
So yeah, Bitcoin is becoming its own asset class, and yeah, it's just really interesting to see. And then we do business with Coinbase and Gemini.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. For market making? You're like, do you provide liquidity or?
I think what they do is the ETF companies that track Bitcoin, whenever they like basically they're willing to bid a certain amount in order to like have that much Bitcoin, and then our system will see when that amount has gotten big enough, and then it makes sense to do that trade. And so we'll like provide the service that supplies the I'm gonna pause. I don't understand it, and I don't understand it enough to explain it. But then our company does market making stuff, and they do ETF stuff. And I was asking questions, and then the person responded, and it sounded like he knew what he was saying. And I'm still a newbie in the market making world, so yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like I know this stuff. But
I look forward to us in 10 weeks, dude. Maybe 20.
we're just puffing a cigar. Like, we know all this.
Next thing, I'll come visit you someday once this quarantine's over, and we'll have a cigar on and record next to each other.
It's funny because it was being explained to me, and I was just like, wow.
Dude, it makes sense when they tell you, right? And then it's
Yeah.
like, how do you explain it yourself? And it's so hard sometimes. You're like, how does a private key work on a Trezor? I'm like, I thought I knew that, and then I just forget. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's like when you read something hard and you're like, I think I get it.
Yeah.
And then you realize you have no idea when someone like asks you about it and you try to teach it and you're like, okay, I know nothing.
I just need to stop. Yeah, it's like episode, what was it, 1 or 2, when you're talking about the artists that you met and they like explored the world and expressed the world of art to you, and you're like, whoa. If you try to like explain that though in your own words, you'd probably be like,
nah,
yeah, this is a pile of tongue on the wall with no connotation.
Yeah, this is why I'm only an aspiring artist right now.
How is your art going? We're tangenting. Well, we need to come back. We need to put a peg to anyone who has made it this far through all of the ramblings. I hope it wasn't too disappointing.
I'm not disappointed.
Good. I do think that I'm going to go through all of this and scrub through it and just like deep dive into this and become this is just something I need to learn. Yeah, dude. This is what we want to learn about. This is it. This is the future, and I have to. I love that Antonopoulos quote, that in the same way that he was talking about the telephone lines and what, and they were plugging into light bulbs because they didn't have electricity sockets, so they were plugging into like a light bulb socket for the laundry machine too and stuff. That's how electricity kind of came about. But also the roads. I really like that analogy he makes of just how crypto and Bitcoin especially, we're still in the phases where we're on cobble streets. Well, from what I understand and believe, we're on cobble streets and we have horses-drawn carriages. And there's a story he said of the first car that went down that type of street was jumpy and clunky and bouncing all around. And people were kind of like throwing rocks at it, laughing at it, and like, what is that thing? And it's a monster. It's hideous. And it couldn't really go far. Didn't have very many tweaks. Didn't have power steering. No seatbelts. Dear God, what barbarians. But anyways, we're still in that level where we're just getting to, the Lightning Network level 2 tier. So it's basically like putting down the cement and starting to build some streets on the town roads and whatnot. And then we're going to start to build more cars and such. So with that type of analogy, that's where I'm kind of like trying to go back to that thing where I was just listing things out and never really forgot to go into details of like, you've got Bitcoin, which is the very foundation of everything, and it's really amazing type of currency that will exponentially, I don't know about exponential, but will keep going up most likely. Then you've got other things like Ethereum, which the question is, does Ethereum fight against Bitcoin, and does Bitcoin fight against Ethereum? And I need to look more into Litecoin. Sounds like it's doing the same thing, but Ethereum's kind of a good place to R&D things that you can't do on Bitcoin. Ethereum's kind of a place that's like a playground where there's the wild, wild west of rules, and things get changed all the time, and things are just like things you can't do due to security reasons on Bitcoin and the blockchain there, you can do on Ethereum and the blockchain there and explore, and they do a lot more rapid development in certain ways. So there's pros and cons to it. And then you've got things like Link, which I thought was interesting. So when you are creating a decentralized application off of an ERC20 type of token on Ethereum for a dApp, you can basically use Link, and supposedly Link is a way in which it's the idea that I'm still trying to comprehend is it's trying to be a mediator between many different blockchains. So on the left, you've got different blockchains. And then on the right, you've got services like APIs and integrations to the best way I heard was a weather service. So how do you get a smart contract in Ethereum? And I haven't looked into smart contracts on Bitcoin, whether or not that's the thing and how well it works. But on Ethereum, you've got smart contracts and you can do rules and stuff like that. And if it's pretty dumb right now, so it's still Cobble Road, where I thought it's a really interesting idea where on Ethereum, if you create a smart contract and you say, hey, John, I'm going to pay you 1 Satoshi just for shits and giggles every time the weather drops below 60 degrees Fahrenheit in Arizona, just so you remember that you should come here to the donation fund. I can't do that right now unless I do some crazy integrations and make my own API requests and stuff. But with Link, supposedly, or other types of tokens in that sense, you're able to use them. And I don't understand how to bridge that gap between hitting that service API for what the weather is, the weather channel services, and or validating between multiple rather than just one. So you don't have a single point of failure for manipulating a smart contract. You can use Link, and then you can have that integrated into the Solidity smart contract or whatever on Ethereum and have that actionable. And I thought that was really cool. So like forevermore in infinity, we'll have Hugh paying John 1 Satoshi every time the weather drops below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, you know? Like I think that's really cool. And then you've got, I don't understand how Cardano and Polkadot really work.
By the way, there are thousands of coins. I don't think we have the capacity to go through each.
These are the top 10 market cap ones. These are why I think they're interesting.
Yeah, but which also change every few months.
Yeah, I guess, but they're interesting because they have the top 10 slots.
Yeah, I think IOTA is also interesting. Have you heard of IOTA?
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it. Tell me more.
Yeah, so it's another fancy schmancy, well, technically not a blockchain. It runs on what they call a tangle, and every node points to 2 other nodes, and then it becomes this like interlaced web of a mesh of nodes, or like it's like transactions. And the idea, the big value proposition behind it is that you have 0 transaction costs. And I think what happens, I think how they do it is before you send a transaction, you verify 2 other transactions. And then you send a transaction for free. But then like the more nodes that there are in the tangle, then the faster and more secure your entire network is. Don't ask me any more about it because I don't know anymore.
I think that's cool. So does this type of thing though kind of again, it goes back to the 2140 question. I'm still trying to understand, and especially anybody's listening too, you know, like, does investing as a hedge in blockchain technology and really a hedge in the future of what it looks like, especially in Bitcoin, who's the lead dog right now, does does this, like, even the IOTA Tangle Mesh network for transactions, is their goal? Okay, maybe I'm asking you a question when you just said don't ask me more questions about it. But it's like, are they trying to usurp Bitcoin, or are they trying to be just an extension of Bitcoin that it doesn't do? Kind of like Ethereum is trying to be an extension in a way.
I think some IOTA super fans will tell you that it's trying to replace Bitcoin. I think there's room for both. So like I think the big value proposition of IOTA is that it enables this world of like smart devices.
Never heard
which
of that yet.
I wish we could like bring on an IOTA developer where they can explain it. Like it sounds really cool.
Added to the to-do list. We're gonna bring on an IOTA developer someday, dude. I'm so down for this. To like, if we could go as a 10-part series of the 10 market cap coins and bring on like a good person.
Yeah, someone who represents that coin or like is a super fan, or
and just have them super fan it, and that would be so cool.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Sure.
All right. This is making a note. We're gonna do this.
Yeah, we're going places. Well, it's a little past 5 p.m. I have a reservation at the apartment gym at 5 p.m. Amazing. But I think we've had a pretty good discussion. Just to summarize, what happens to Bitcoin in 2140? We're not totally sure. All of our other tangents, I don't know how to summarize that. Hugh, do you want to close?
I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to episode 5, I believe, of the Moon Tea podcast. It's John Kim and Hugh Berryman, your co-hosts. Thank you again for standing in there and listening, and cheers until next week. Okay, thanks everybody.
Cheers.